Right, hello everyone. Okay, so a bit of news. Right, so I don't know what is going on with Battlefield 2042 because yesterday after I recorded, the server started having frame rate drops. I don't know why. I thought it had something to do with the Wi-Fi router, and I think it did because I don't know whatever reason. And I was going to maybe post another video today about like how to win like conquest the mode I play, not the timed version of that because screw that one. But it seems that Battlefield 2042 does not want to work. I'm not the only one experiencing this. I saw about 16 other posts saying, "Yo, if anyone knows what's going on, please join the this party." If you're on Xbox, you know what a post is. I don't know if PlayStation have that. I don't have one. Yeah, and it seems I'm not the only one who's been affected by. It seems that my dad's not been the only one affected by unnecessary. What I haven't I don't think I've been having. I've ever had this issue because I normally just delete the video if it's that bad. But yeah, it seems that there's a guy called Actman or something, and YouTube has demonetized his whole channel. First it was just one video, then it was two others after he made a complaint about it on Twitter. He had to. Right, point is, I'm ranting, I'm getting annoyed because YouTube sucks. They use stupid bots to do monetization issues and then they end up fucking over the entire bloody stupid. It's stupid. Right, I'm over it. Sort of. Maybe it's annoying, but I can get over it. I think, hopefully. Right, we're watching some more free. Yeah, fuck. Suck my. That's a lot hot. This sort of thing where you back out of the video is a lot harder on mobile. Forgot to put my phone on charge.
I work nights for the Sheriff's Department in Bergen County. I've been on the force for 2 years. I haven't seen too much craziness, aside from late-night drug arrests, a few robbery calls, and a few assault calls. Northeastern Bergen County is pretty low crime after all, so those are usually the worst calls I deal with. There was this one night that I received a disturbance call to investigate a scream that came from a house nearby. Usually a call like this would mean a domestic dispute, or even just something as harmless as people drinking and being too loud. I arrived to the house though, and I had to confirm twice that it was the correct house, because none of the lights were on. There was a car in the driveway though, a blue Toyota Sienna minivan.
Nice.
Someone was home. I went over to knock on the door a few times. The neighbor must have seen my car because he came out and walked over, reporting that he was the one to call the police. He told me he heard a blood-curdling scream from the house, and that the woman who lives there lives alone but occasionally had her boyfriend over, making it slightly more concerning. I tried the doorknob now, which was locked. I then made my way around the house, trying all the windows, which were all locked. All but one of the backyard windows. It was already slid completely up, enough for someone to climb through. This was a red flag, considering every other window was closed. I requested backup to the scene, and once I got confirmation, I climbed into the house through the window. I started to flick every light on that I could find in the house, starting in the kitchen and working my way to the living room. And yes, it's advisable for police to turn on the lights when investigating buildings.
Okay.
What you see in TV shows and movies where they leave the lights off is only done for suspense.
Yeah.
I called out for the woman, trying to assure her it's okay, police were here. Though at that time, I still didn't know what exactly the situation was, other than she was reported screaming. There was no response, no matter how loud I yelled. The first floor was clear, so there was only the upstairs left to check. I wanted to wait for backup to arrive, because I was nervous what I'd find up there. But I'd also not forgive myself if I waited and wasted precious time that I could have used to save this woman from a possible medical emergency. Before going up the stairs, I unlocked the front door for when backup would arrive. I then walked up the carpeted stairs quietly, and as I got halfway up the stairs, I peered over the ledge onto the second floor. There were 4 doors up there. I flicked on the light switch in the hallway. I called out one more time. I heard a creak-type sound come from behind one of the doors, so she had to be in there. I opened the door, and it was a bedroom. The light was off. The light from the hall was bright. To see a woman laying in bed under the covers. I saw the back of her head. I walked over to her to make sure she was okay. As I was close, I noticed dark stains that soaked the other side of the covers. The side of her I couldn't see from the door. I yanked the covers off the woman and realized it was blood, and she'd been stabbed multiple times.
Oh!
She was still breathing. I grabbed my walkie and reported a stabbing, requesting immediate backup and an ambulance. The creak I heard moments before suddenly made no sense if this woman was in bed like this. And given she was unconscious, someone placed her in the bed most likely. I did a 360 in place, looking around the room. There was a closet. It was instinctively the first place I'd think to look. I had my gun drawn and had my hand on the doorknob for 5 seconds, gathering the courage to yank the door open. When I finally did, there was no one inside. I turned around again to look at the bed, at the bleeding woman. Then I thought, the bed. I got on my knees to be level with the bottom of the bed. I yanked the bed wrap covering the bottom of the bed up, and I was then eye to eye with a man wearing a face mask covering the lower half of his face. I shrieked and yelled, "Show me your hands." He slowly raised his hands above his head as much as he could. I got up and told him to get out from under the bed slowly and made sure he wasn't holding the knife. I had him stand in the corner with his hands up until my backup came. I wasn't about to try and handcuff him in there alone, when he could have any weapon on his person. I told backup to meet me upstairs, and when they entered the house, I called out to them. Only then did I place the man under arrest. An ambulance arrived not too long after. The woman was rushed to the hospital, and she managed to survive being stabbed 6 times. The man who did it was in fact her boyfriend, which I didn't find too surprising, honestly. The man had found out that she cheated on him with his friend, and when he called her about it, she broke up with him over the phone. And this must have caused the man to snap. I'm just very thankful the woman survived.
Okay. I know we've all had our moments where our partner, boyfriend or girlfriend has broken up with us, and we wish they were dead, or the person you know what I mean. Sometimes we wish that. But man literally took it way too far. We'll say though, being a cop with a, I think in most states, like police officers are like armed with a Glock 17. I'm sure I'm not. I don't know, but in like other countries, in like other states, you're like allowed a full-on pump shotgun.
This story was told to me by my best friend's uncle, who works the night shift as a police officer in our city. A year or so ago, Mike, my best friend's uncle, was out on his nightly patrol with his partner, Steve. They've been working together for years, and they're both Army veterans, so they're very level-headed and calm people,
Nice.
for being police officers. When they got a call from a landlord at an apartment complex complaining about one of his tenants, they didn't really expect anything bad. They get calls like that all the time, so they headed over to see what was going on. When they arrived, the landlord greeted them outside. It was probably 1 or 2 in the morning, and everyone from the complex was standing out in the grass, which was odd. The landlord approached Mike and Steve and started to rant about one of their neighbors being crazy and turning all the water on in his apartment. Apparently he was some guy in his 30s, and he'd been acting weird lately. I could see that there was water seeping out from the front door to the place, and decided they had to go in and do a welfare check on the guy. When they walked in, water was pouring down the stairs and clearly flooding the building, which meant that this water had to have been turned on for hours to cause this kind of damage. They climbed to the second story and knocked on the door where the water was gushing out from. The landlord told them that the tenant's name was Adam, and so they pounded on the door calling his name. No one answered for a couple minutes, and so they decided to break the door down. When they did, they spotted Adam standing in his kitchen. All of the sinks, the shower, and the toilet from the bathroom, and a hose from outside were gushing water everywhere. Adam was standing there, shaking. His eyes were wide, like he was terrified to move. "Adam, what's going on?" I You all right? Mike asked while his partner Steve walked further inside to check everything out. Steve walked into the bathroom to turn off the water and to make sure no one else was in the apartment. Mike slowly approached Adam, who seemed terrified because he was shaking so much. He didn't even look at Mike as he approached. Again, he was asked what was wrong, and he finally stuttered out that there are people in the walls. Mike didn't hear what he was saying at first, but as he got closer, Adam started to hear it over and over, louder and louder. There are people in the walls, until he was almost screaming it, getting himself worked up. Steve walked into the bedroom next and was clearing the room when he checked the closet and noticed something as he turned on the light. There was a very faint line that ran across the wall. At first he didn't think anything of it, but then he heard what Adam was screaming, and a sinking feeling hit his gut. The more he stared at it, the more he realized that the line was in the shape of a door cut out of the wall. It clearly wasn't meant to be there. Mike was about to lead Adam out of the apartment when Steve suddenly called to him, "You better take a look at this."
Bruh.
Mike went into the other room to see Steve pointing his gun at the wall in the bedroom, clearly freaked out. They both approached the door, guns raised, while Adam started to cry in the back room. Steve quickly pulled a piece of wall back. They both froze. Three sets of eyes stared back at them. Three people were pressed together in this tiny space in the wall, their faces painted in weird patterns. Both Steve and Mike ordered them out and handcuffed each one. By that time, backup had arrived, and some other police officers got Adam out of there. They led the three downstairs and sent them off to jail. Mike and Steve were deeply disturbed by the whole exchange. It was only made worse when a couple months later, they found out that the three people in the wall were from some crazy cult out in the woods. They were trying to get Adam to join them. They preyed on him because they knew he had a past history of being mentally unstable. They were trying to scare him. He turned on all the water in an attempt to flush them out of his own home. To this day, Mike and Steve say that this was the most disturbing call they've ever been on.
That is straight up disrespectful.
This one time when I was working a 12-hour overnight shift, I went out on a call for a suspicious person walking house to house, knocking on doors, and saying things to people through their doors or to their doorbell cameras. I arrived to the man's house who called it in, and he explained better in person that it was a middle-aged woman with long, wiry hair holding something behind her back, going door to door yelling at people to open up and mumbling to herself. The man who called the police had a Ring doorbell camera, and so he showed me the footage that it caught. The woman came up to the door, looked at the camera for a few minutes, literally, and pressed the button. She started speaking into the mic of the doorbell, and the homeowner started talking back through his phone, starting by asking who she is and what she wants. She kept saying, "Open the door, she needs blood," and would smile and cackle each time she said it. When he threatened to call the police, she laughed and started basically punching the door and trying to remove the Ring doorbell camera from the wall. It wasn't possible to tell if the threat of calling the police is what eventually got her to leave. But when she did, the man saw that she went to the house next door. This was when he actually called 911. The footage was absolutely bone-chilling. It was like a scene from a scary movie, and it wasn't possible to tell what she was holding behind her back because of the creepy way she backed away from the door to the sidewalk, still facing the doorbell camera the entire time. There were 2 or 3 other units on this now, driving around the area.
Okay, can we actually see it?
It was basically a mini manhunt now, and the description being used was possibly armed and dangerous woman. I checked the nearby houses on foot.
We aren't even gonna get... Nah.
And started patrolling the area as well. None of us could find the woman, and then we got a report.
Okay, Mr. Policeman, sorry, but, yeah, I don't really believe your story, because you are not showing physical evidence. Sure, it probably did happen, but I'd like to see some evidence. Like, maybe the videos of me watching Mr. Nightmare where it actually had video evidence, like very short video evidence, it was somewhat believable because it had like some sort of backup to it. But yeah.
Word of a breaking and entering nearby. Someone had called 911 to report that someone had entered their house with a weapon, and the caller was hiding in their bedroom upstairs. The caller also had a doorbell camera and was able to see the woman entering the house through the front door, but not before looking into the camera for a few moments again. I arrived to the house just about the same time as another unit. Entering the house was easy, as the front door was left unlocked, of course. We had to enter with caution, though, with guns drawn, because we didn't know how dangerous this woman was, or
do they not have...
to be armed with.
Do they not have tasers?
The square was clear. Another officer and I shouted that the police were here, and we ordered the intruder to come out with their hands up. Then there was a scream for help from upstairs. My adrenaline was rushing, as it does in any situation like this involving armed suspects. We ran up the stairs and followed the screams for help. They led us to the master bedroom. The husband unlocked and opened the bedroom door as we got upstairs. The husband of the couple sitting and hiding in there. They hadn't left the bedroom since the woman had entered the house, and they said she had been clawing and banging at the door only a few minutes ago, and that they didn't hear her leave, let alone even go down the stairs. We had to check every other room in the upstairs for her, and in one of the corner bedrooms, in the pitch blackness, we heard a cackling sound. Not being able to see her, but to hear her, was downright spine-chilling. I flicked on the light to the bedroom. She was there, sitting on the bed, already looking at me and smiling. She had a huge knife in her hand, and there was blood soaking the bed sheets that she was sitting on. It was her blood. She had just cut one of her wrists.
Oh!
She started saying exactly what she was saying on the first guy's doorbell camera, that she needs blood. We didn't know who she meant, until noticing the little doll sitting between her legs. It was a little girl's doll, covered in the woman's blood. We yelled at her to drop the knife with our guns drawn on her. She just laughed and kept saying what she was saying. There was clearly something very wrong with her.
Taser!
Her didn't seem like it would be possible, but we tried anyway. I asked her, who is this she keeps referencing?
Okay. Do American...
And tried to...
Okay, I'm sorry, but I need any of my viewers who are indeed American, or anyone in the comment section who just knows do American police officers have tasers, not just Glocks? Because if they don't have like the tasers, I'm going to be questioning myself. Because you are.
Talk nice to her, saying she doesn't have to hurt herself or anybody else, and that we're there to help her. But as she continued to stare at us, mainly at me, and laugh and keep muttering barely understandable sentences, I got increasingly nervous. I had my gun aimed at the giant knife in her hand, contemplating shooting it out of her hand, considering if that was a viable, safe option. But neither of us were expecting what happened next. The crazed woman sprang off the bed and made this growling sound as she was about to lunge at me and presumably attack me, as her knife was raised in the air. I reacted the only way I could in the moment, and I shot at her twice, both times hitting her in the arm.
Oh, the arm, eh? Well, I'm just going to say, tase! Police in Britain have tasers. So explain to me why American police... Oh, wait, that's too weak, apparently.
Even though I was still trying to have my sight aimed on the knife, I wasn't expecting her to just jump up suddenly. She dropped the knife and started to scream and cry as she grabbed her arm. We took this moment to subdue her and place her in cuffs. We had to get her an ambulance immediately before she'd bleed out. From the hospital, she'd later be transported to a local jail. She was later found not guilty on all charges by reason of insanity. She's currently a patient at a mental asylum in my city. The horror that every party involved in this incident had to go through was unimaginable. From all the people who were scared to open their doors to a crazed woman welding something unknown behind her back, to the couple that actually almost fell victim to her in their own house, to myself and the other officer that were on the scene before she was in custody. It was the scariest experience of my 10 years being a police officer.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, mate, but I'd like to be able to believe you, but you had Ring doorbell footage and you didn't fucking show. Did the person who had the Ring doorbell footage not give consent? Some fucking shit. Oh my God. Or maybe the cop didn't poke... I don't... Fuck off. I don't know, but it's very annoying when people say that there was a video evidence and they don't show it. Annoys me. Did I show it? I'm gonna watch it because this one...
We are sorry. The number you have dialed has been...
In 2015, student Michael Andrews of the University of Southern California had left his dorm room with his roommate Steve to go to a frat party off campus. On the way to the party, Steve had realized he left his phone in the dorm room, but already in the Uber to the party, they didn't bother going back to the dorm. As some point during the party, while the two friends had separated to mingle with other friends and acquaintances, Michael's phone began to ring. It was from Steve's number. He picked up and heard Steve's voice on the other end, covered by a mask of static. Even in the loud party, he could distinguish the voice of his roommate saying, "Come back to the room." Then the call ended. With that, Michael left the party and Ubered back to the campus dorms, trying to call Steve back and text him, but he wasn't getting any responses. When Michael got back to the dorm room, he didn't find Steve inside. Strangely though, he did find Steve's phone sitting on his bed. Upon checking the notifications on the screen, Michael saw the notifications of all his texts and calls on the screen. It wasn't until an hour later that Steve returned to the room looking for Michael after hearing that he left. And this was when he told Michael that he never called him and that he never had his phone. What made this even stranger was that Steve's phone had no record of making a call to Michael, yet Michael's phone had a record of receiving a call and having a 15-second conversation. The phone company wasn't able to trace a call from Steve inside, and nobody was found hiding in their dorm room or anything like that. In 1970, 25-year-old Donna Lass worked as a nurse at the first aid station of a casino in South Lake Tahoe, California. One day, Donna's boss and landlord both received calls from an unidentified man who claimed she was dealing with an illness in the family and would be out of town for a while. Donna's boss became suspicious, so he contacted her mother, who confirmed that story was a lie. Donna's car was found parked outside her apartment, but there was no trace of her anywhere. The last sign of her was an entry she'd made in her logbook near the end of her final shift. The entry looked unfinished, as if someone had possibly interrupted her. No one could figure out Donna's whereabouts or the identity of the caller until the San Francisco Chronicle received a mysterious postcard 6 months later. The postcard was the latest in a long line of cryptic messages from the Zodiac Killer. The killer made no direct reference to Donna, but hinted that he had murdered and buried his 12th victim in Lake Tahoe. It didn't take a detective to make the connection between this note and Donna's disappearance. The postcard provided a lot of possible clues regarding Donna's whereabouts, but a search of the area turned up nothing. Something complicates a connection between the Zodiac Killer and Donna, though, and that's the fact that the Zodiac Killer was not known for hiding bodies. So if he wasn't responsible, the whereabouts of Donna's body and who tried to hide her disappearance remain a mystery.
But okay.
In 2008, 19-year-old college student Brendan Swanson was driving home after a night out when he crashed into a ditch on a gravel road in the middle of nowhere in Minnesota. Knowing how dangerous of a predicament he found himself in, and probably aware he was in a cliché horror movie setup, he called his parents and asked for a ride. However, his parents had trouble finding him, and when arriving to the location he provided, they couldn't find his car, so they got back on the phone for over 45.
Should have had what 3 words? I'll go jump out the window now. I swear the what 3 words at will go like, do you not want this to happen? And I'm going like, when in the ever-loving hell would we want how would you presume us to ever have this sort of situation? Why are you not telling us what 3 words? Stop hiding your secrets.
5 minutes trying to find him as he described his location. Swanson claimed he could see lights from a nearby town and was heading in that direction, but things took a turn for the worse when he suddenly yelled, "Oh shit." Before his father could even scold his son for using that language on the phone with him, the call cut off, and that's the last anyone ever heard from Brendan. Even with hundreds of volunteers and 30 dogs searching, only his car was found. So what happened to him? What did he see that made him go, "Oh shit," before abruptly hanging up?
Who knows?
A few years back, a Reddit user named Stacy Kolupski shared the experience of her brother, who would get a call on his cell phone around 2 to 3 a.m. every night. He would answer it every time to hear this hellish-sounding noise that he described as a static mixed with screams. He changed his cell phone number after a month of this, and it stopped. Then, after a week or so, it began again, with the exact same noise at the exact same time. Finally, one day he decided to backdial the call, and an old man picked up who had no idea what he was talking about. If he didn't answer, it would call a few more times, but no messages were ever left. He decided to say screw it, and ended his contract with his phone company, switched to a new one, and then got another new number. And exactly what he feared had happened. The screaming static calls continued after a short delay. By this time he was terrified every night. Unsure why this was happening, he backdialed the number again and got a different person, who also had no idea what he was talking about. Around this time, Stacy's brother lost his job and his phone, which was now disconnected, meaning the calls of course stopped. One day, Stacy's mom asked her to listen to a weird message she got on her home phone. It was the static screaming. They showed her brother, and he of course freaked out. He backdialed the number again, and it said the number was disconnected this time. They never heard from it again after that.
Well, no, okay, I was paying attention, but I got really, really confused. Hang on, sorry guys.
On his cell phone around 2 to 3 a.m. every night. He would answer it every time to hear this hellish sounding noise that he described as a static mixed with screams. He changed his cell phone number after a month of this, and it stopped. Then after a week or so, it began again, with the exact same noise at the exact same time. Finally, one day he decided to backdial the call, and an old man picked up who had no idea what he was talking about. If he didn't answer, it would call a few more times, but no messages were ever left. He decided to say screw it, and ended his contract with his phone company, switched to a new one, and then got another new number. And exactly what he feared had happened. The screaming static calls continued after a short delay. By this time he was terrified every night. Unsure why this was happening, he backdialed the number again and got a different person, who also had no idea what he was talking about. Around this time, Stacy's brother lost his job and his phone, which was now disconnected, meaning the calls of course stopped. One day, Stacy's mom asked her to listen to a weird message she got on her home phone. It was the static screaming.
Okay, hang on. So, wait, what? Okay, this guy is explaining stuff very shittily. So, he lost his job and his phone. So I don't fucking know. Hang on.
Which was
Right, actually, hang on. No. I'll be back in a sec, guys. Alright, lads. My mum will be coming up in a second. Yep, let's do this. Right.
now disconnected, meaning the calls of course stopped. One day, Stacy's mom asked her to listen to a weird message she got on her home phone. It was the static screaming. They showed her brother, and he of course freaked out. He backdialed the number again, and it said the number was disconnected this time. They never heard from it again after that. In the 1970s, Bashir Kaushaki opened a successful restaurant in Washington, D.C., and for over a decade enjoyed nothing but success. But in 1983, he became the target of a non-stop stream of threatening phone calls that came several times a day, every day. Usually harassment similar to this will eventually stop on its own as the harassers get bored and move on to something else. But Kaushaki was harassed by these phone calls for nearly a decade. The caller would eventually be nicknamed L'Enfant, which is French for the child. The nickname was presumed to reference the caller's eventual imitation of a little girl. Anyone associated with Kaushaki in any way was a target, from his pregnant spouse to his restaurant employees.
Bruh.
The harassment was one day elevated from simply phone calls to physical harassment when the Star of David was scratched all over Kaushaki's Mercedes.
Bruh.
When he traveled to Philadelphia to visit his sister, things got so bad that he suffered a mental breakdown and committed himself to a psychiatric ward.
Yikes.
But even still, the calls continued to his restaurant. The FBI eventually placed a trace on the phone to confirm whether L'Enfant was a delusion or not, and and what they found out put how bad this was into perspective. The calls were coming from different payphones at such a high frequency that it would have been impossible for only one person to have been making these calls.
Wow.
Lonfont Callers was a plot orchestrated by multiple people for the express purpose of harassing Kawashaki to insanity, but it was never figured out what the motive was.
FBI, you suck.
All the way back in 1931, there was a man named William Wallace who worked as a London insurance agent and had an obsession for playing chess in his free time. One night, Wallace showed up for a chess club meeting and found a telephone message waiting for him. The sender wanted to meet at 7:30 the following night so he could purchase an insurance policy. The next night, Wallace traveled across town and discovered that the address provided didn't exist. So he headed back home, most likely convinced that he was the victim of some dumb prank. But when he got home, he found his wife Julia's body had been beaten to death in the living room.
Oh.
The mysterious caller was the obvious suspect. But after an investigation, police determined that the caller was actually William Wallace himself.
What?
Authorities argued that Wallace had left the message to fabricate an alibi. He killed his wife, hopped in a streetcar, drove around for an hour, then went home to supposedly discover his wife's body. This argument was invalid, as it was completely impossible for Wallace to have committed the murder, given he wouldn't have been able to return quick enough. The jury found Wallace guilty of the murder anyway, but luckily the Court of Criminal Appeal immediately overturned the conviction. The killer was never identified, but the prime suspect was a former employee of Wallace's insurance firm, who allegedly asked his wife to provide him a fake alibi and was seen wearing bloody gloves and hosing down his car on the night of the murder.
Mm-hmm.
Jason Alexander would frequently get calls to his house for a woman named Tanya. It didn't seem like a big deal since Tanya had the same last name as Jason's family, and it was a common name from where they were from. When Jason and his family moved across the city, and phone books gradually stopped being the go-to way of finding somebody's number, the calls for Tanya gradually stopped. And after a while, the Alexander family forgot about the Tanya woman. It was about 4 years later that she popped up in their lives again. Jason was driving home from work one afternoon and was greeted by a pretty grisly car wreck at the turn to his house. 2 cars had collided, and one had wrapped itself around the signage pole that had the house numbers and directions on it, one of which was his house number. Several days later, he got a call from the police. They asked if Tanya was at his residence. Her car was found wrapped around a pole down the street from Jason's house, and she was nowhere to be found at the accident site. He had never heard anything about her ever again.
That wasn't really scary.
In 1965, the young woman you're looking at, named Judith Hayes, disappeared from her hometown of Coral Gables, Florida. Everyone feared the worst when her abandoned car was found in Atlanta with blood in the back seat. Judith was pregnant and recently went through a divorce. She allegedly made arrangements to get an illegal abortion from a Hungarian doctor named George Hayes.
Oh.
He was charged with conspiring to perform the abortion, but skipped bail and fled the country. After this, the case was forgotten for a quarter century, until it was rejuvenated by a series of bizarre phone calls. In 1990, the Coral Gables police captain Chuck Smith received a message from an Omaha, Nebraska radio host claiming he had information about Judith's disappearance. Smith called the host back, but the host was completely confused. The host said he never made the call, and he knew nothing at all about Judith. Smith soon received another anonymous call claiming Judith was alive in Omaha. Smith knew nothing about the case, but he had recently traveled to Omaha to deliver a lecture at a police academy, and he started to wonder if this was a prank. Smith got a third anonymous call from someone who claimed to be an FBI informant who had recently spent time with Dr. Hayes in Hungary. They even provided an old phone number for Hayes that checked out. Smith was confused, and with such a baffling case, he took the story to the TV show Unsolved Mysteries. Days after the Judith Hayes episode was broadcast, Smith got an anonymous letter confirming what many people suspected all along. Judith died during an illegal abortion and wound up in a watery grave. While that's the logical solution, it doesn't account for all the strange calls. The callers and writer have not been identified, the doctor has not been found, and Judith's body was never recovered.
Oh. Really? Why would I want to go on Spotify? Fuck off, you gay pricks. I will end you, you racist pissants. Sorry guys, I don't want to get copyrighted. Oh no. Scary.
A few years ago, something very weird happened with my best friend and I. I was 15 years old. One night I decided to sleep over at my friend's house.
Okay, I think this is either a different person or maybe a different microphone, because microphones can really...
After a night of scary movies, we were in the mood to do something exciting. Not far from my friend's house was a demolition site. A block of houses in a very terrible state that would be demolished the day after tomorrow. The local government would demolish them to make room for new houses. The whole site was fenced in and warning signs saying "Do not enter" hung everywhere. The houses were boarded up by planks. Doors and windows were sealed shut. No one could get in. We decided to go for a walk on the old block and take some random photographs. My friend knew a spot where we could enter the old block. When we walked there, we noticed that every house was boarded up tight, so we couldn't get in. We noticed a house with a window on the top floor that wasn't very well boarded up. We could see into the room. We took a photo with a digital camera. Later, we went home and took a look at the pictures we made. Suddenly, we came across the photo of the window. We saw a woman dressed in a brown raincoat with white skin and black hair as long as we could visibly see. The woman looked very sad. We hadn't seen any woman up there when we took the picture. Moreover, the windows and doors were boarded. We went back to the house to see if that was correct. After investigation, it really was. Everything was tied shut, and there was no woman.
Well, that happens.
This story isn't mine, but rather of my friend from Japan. I'll call him Rita. It happened back when Rita was only about 11 or 12 years old. Rita was a rather attractive kid and had his fair share of admirers. One girl was extreme with her crush, though. I'll call her Ayano. Ayano was a lot older than Rita. She was 17.
That's not a lot, that's 2 years.
And lived down the road from him. Rita had...
Yes. 2 years difference. I'm going to say a lot older. A lot older is something like a 17-year-old going out with a 27-year-old. That's almost a decade age.
Hadn't thought
American.
Much of her until she started stalking him. Every day and every night, she would be following him one way or another, whether it be in person or online. Rita first started getting the creeps when she would start messaging him over 20 times a day. Stuff like, "Be safe," "Are you alright?" "Sleep well," etc. This was a little weird, but he
Mate, this ain't creepy. This is just like an average Discord caller. I've had my fair share of weird contacts. Don't worry.
overlooked it. Then the messages started getting creepier. Instead of the usual checkup emails, they got more personal. Things like, "You should eat your lunch," if he skipped lunch, or "I think your sister is hungry," when his little sister was crying. Rita stopped using both his phone and social media at this point, but it doesn't end there. Rita's mother was almost never home, so he was frequently looked after by babysitters. One day, he had a new babysitter. It was Ayano. Nothing was particularly strange as she looked after him and his siblings, but she did get a lot closer to his mother than he would like. One day at school, Ayano approached Rita and told him that his mother would be out of the country for a week, and that she told her to let Rita stay at her house.
No.
Rita was hesitant at first, but hey, it was his mother's wish. He couldn't go against that.
True.
Ayano told him that his mother had already left, so he could go home with her after school that day. Rita reluctantly agreed and went home with her.
That's your mistake.
When he got there, her parents weren't home. Things get a little blurry here as my friend choked up telling the story, as it still scares him today. He said,
My God, what a wuss. Okay, I get if what this bitch Ayane did was particularly terrifying, traumatizing, or scary, or upsetting. I get that he might have started crying, but Jesus Christ.
That Ayano would play weird games with him, stuff like family, where she insisted she was the wife and he was the husband, as well as things like cops and robbers, and games to see who would get scared first, where she...
Okay, if this girl is doing family games where she's a wife at 17, I think it would be time to book an appointment with the therapist. Cops and robbers isn't exactly that scary unless it's where the 17-year-old girl is literally snogging you. And games where you would get scared for... That's just literal siblings.
You would blindfold him and leave him in a silent room for hours.
Okay, no, it's a lot worse than what I thought. No.
Hours on end. It was 5 days into staying at her house, and Ayano had gone to her part-time job. She had left the doors locked, and the windows were too high to jump from.
What kind of... Okay, well, he is 15, so Jesus Christ.
So he just stayed in front of the TV, where he saw a chilling news report. It was a missing child report. The missing child being him. Before he had the time to...
Bruh, terror.
Catch the number to call, the TV switched off, and Ayano was standing behind him with the remote.
No. Yeah, I think that's all I'm going to shoot at them. I now need to get the bullets back.
In her hand. Rita had freaked out, crying and screaming. Ayano held him, but he managed to wiggle from her grasp just in time to open a window and cry for help. Luckily for him, a couple were walking past, heard his cries and called the police. Within an hour, police arrived and found him locked in her bedroom with a blindfold and his hands tied. Due to Ayano still being a minor, Rita is unsure of what happened to her. He says he only remembers the police taking her away while his mother was hugging him. He moved to Australia after this and hasn't seen his kidnapper since, but he still cowers at the sound of her name.
Bruh, that's ultimately terrifying.
About 5 years ago, I lived downtown in a major city in the US. I've always been a night person, so I would often find myself bored after my roommate, who was decidedly not a night person, went to sleep. To pass the time, I used to go for long walks and spend the time thinking. I spent 4 years like that, walking alone at night, and never once had a reason to feel afraid. I always used to joke with my roommates that even the drug dealers in the city were polite. But all of that changed in just a few minutes of one evening. It was a Wednesday, somewhere between 1 and 2 in the morning, and I was walking near a police-patrolled park quite a ways from my apartment. It was a quiet night, even for a weeknight, with very little traffic and almost no one on foot. The park, as it was most nights, was completely empty. I went down a short side street in order to loop back down my apartment when I first noticed him. At the far end of the street, on my side, was the silhouette of a man dancing. It was a strange dance, similar to a waltz, but he finished each box with an odd forward stride. I guess you could say he was dance walking, headed straight for me.
Yep.
Deciding he was probably drunk, I stepped as close as I could to the road to give him the majority of the sidewalk to pass me. The closer he got, the more I realized how gracefully he was moving. He was very tall and lanky, and wearing an old suit.
Lanky.
He danced closer still, until I could make out his face. His eyes were open wide and wild, head tilted back slightly, looking off at the sky. His mouth was formed in a painfully wide cartoon of a smile. Between the eyes and the smile, I decided to cross the street before he danced any closer. I took my eyes off of him to cross the empty street, As I reached the other side, I glanced back, and then stopped dead in my tracks. He had stopped dancing and was standing with one foot in the street, perfectly parallel to me.
Nah.
He was facing me, but still looking skyward, smile still wide on his lips. I was completely and utterly unnerved by this. I started walking again, but kept my eyes on the man. He didn't move. Once I had put about half a block between us, I turned away from him for a moment to watch the sidewalk in front of me. The street and sidewalk ahead of me were completely empty. Still unnerved, I looked back to where he had been standing to find him gone. For the briefest of moments I felt relieved, until I noticed him. He had crossed the street and was now slightly crouched down. I couldn't tell for sure due to the distance and the shadows, but I was certain he was facing me. I had looked away from him for no more than 10 seconds, so it was clear that he had moved fast. I was so shocked, and I stood there for some time, staring at him, and then he started moving toward me again. He took giant, exaggerated, tiptoed steps, as if he were a cartoon character sneaking up on someone.
Yeah, no.
Except he was moving very, very quickly. I'd like to say...
Right, okay. This is why, if I ever go to another country, say, I don't know, well, when I say another country, I don't mean, like, to Wales, because that's technically the same country. But if I ever went to, like, France or Portugal, I would look around my bedroom before, like, getting in the car, and I'd pick something that I could use as possibly a weapon. Something to use to really smack against somebody's face if... because I've had dreams of situations where my family have been pursued by some whack job. It does not look... The best thing in my room that I could use to really do some actual physical damage is maybe something that would make me look weird if I was seen carrying it around everywhere. Like, that is the best I got. Like, there are a couple of things underneath my dad's bed that could do some damage, but they're more like ornaments, and I would get arrested for possessing a sharp object. I believe that's the official term.
At this point that I ran away or pulled out my pepper spray or cell phone or any...
Man had pepper spray and didn't immediately do... Bruh. Also, can I just say, who is a clown that buys a taser off the internet and immediately on video tasers himself? That's not supposed for you. That's not for self-harm, you fucking idiots.
Anything at all.
It's funny.
I didn't. I just stood there, completely frozen, as the smiling man crept toward me. And then he stopped again, about...
My reaction to when a guy with a massive smile like that was looking up at the sky and following me like a fucking cartoon character. Hello, sir. Today I have a very brand new offer for you. Meet the M16 carbine, assault rifle, American made, and it's about to be fucking fired upon at you. Would you like to test this? Just shoots it at him.
The car length away from me, still smiling a smile, still looking to the sky. When I finally found my voice, I blurted out the first thing that came to mind. What I meant to ask was, "What the fuck do you want?" in an angry, commanding tone. What came out was a whimper. What the fuck? Regardless of whether or not humans can smell fear, they can certainly hear it. I heard it in my own voice. That only made me more afraid. But he didn't react to it at all. He just stood there, smiling. And then, after what felt like forever, he turned around, very slowly, and started dance-walking away. Just like that. Not wanting to turn my back to him again, I just watched him go, until he was far enough away to almost be out of sight. And then I realized something. He wasn't moving away anymore, nor was he dancing. I watched in horror as the distant shape of him got bigger and bigger. He was coming back my way. He was coming back my way, and this time he was running. I ran too. I ran until I was off the side road and back onto a better lit road with sparse traffic. Looking behind me then, he was nowhere to be found. The rest of my way home, I kept glancing over my shoulder, always
Wait, so, what do you mean he got bigger? He ain't fucking Ant-Man, mate. You ain't just gonna go suddenly walk away and then just turn into a fucking titan. Oh, does he mean like get bigger as in like... this is dark. How... Never mind. Again, this is why I'm going to be having a stick or something, you know, big enough to use as a fucking weapon. Because I am not being unarmed when some psychotic drug dealer tries to shank me in my arse.
To see his stupid smile, but he was never there. I lived in that city for 6 months after that, and I never went out for another walk. There was something about his face that always haunted me. He didn't look drunk. He didn't look high. He looked completely and utterly insane. And that's a very, very scary thing to see.
Yeah, probably, but that's why I would start screaming, "Fuck you, you communist!"
My mom was a cleaner in Australia. She would clean houses in suburban areas and would sometimes do houses in rural or wine regions. She would leave business cards at the local shops and got most of her business this way, and some through referrals and word of mouth. One day she got a call from a lady who sounded like she was around 60, asking Mom to clean her old farmhouse. She made a lot of odd demands, and Mom would usually meet clients before taking on new business. In this case, the lady did not want to meet my mom and said she would leave the keys under the front doormat. Mom agreed, mainly because the lady was quite obviously wealthy and was offering to pay Mom substantially more than she would reasonably expect. Mom went to the house on a Monday morning and said she already felt
See, okay, no, I'm sorry. Okay, this is when you want to get red flags, okay? If you get a call from somebody, and normally, okay, so if I was this woman, I would say, okay, so I'd expect, I'm thinking, the price, probably about, how much is house cleaning? I don't know, like, not, you know, expensive, but fair enough. So something like 15 quid maybe? I don't know. But if I was getting an offer of like 60 quid or above, I'd be going like, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right. Nah, I ain't. And especially if the fact that they wanted me to clean a certain area, like a farmhouse where I've seen horror movies, I ain't going.
Nerved by the long driveway. The house was essentially in the middle of a very large and very empty property. She found the keys and started cleaning. About an hour into the clean, she hears the back door shut. Mom was told no one would be at the house, so she immediately felt unsafe.
Why didn't she leave? She has a fucking brain, why didn't she fucking use it? It's like me going to a Christ, my God. It's like, if these are true stories, I am baffled at how people can be so stupid. It is beyond a joke.
She stood frozen in the kitchen for what she said felt like 3 or 4 minutes, although she said it could have been much longer. There was no other car on the property. She wanted to leave immediately, but had 2 rooms left to do. Both were bedrooms. She said it...
Fuck doing your job. It. If you hear a door close and you were assured that there would be nobody here, and they haven't immediately announced their presence by saying, "Hi, I'm the lady who hired you. Sorry about the back door slamming. I didn't mean to alarm you." If you didn't hear that, get the fuck out of there. God, it's like morons. Jesus Christ. I'd expect this from a 7-year-old, but my God. Oh, by the way, 7-year-olds in a horror movie, absolutely dog shit. If I have a child and they're saying, "Yeah, Dad, go back and get my teddy bear," and the teddy bear is in the room of a serial killer or a fucking murder clown, I'd say, "Not me, go get it. You're on your own, mate. I'm peacing out. I don't care if I'm a terrible father. I ain't risking my neck just for some stuffed animal, just to only get shanked in my arse."
As time passed and she heard nothing else, she decided that perhaps it was nothing, or perhaps something had fallen and it wasn't the door after all. She walked up the hallway and stepped into the bed.
What object in the Jesus of hell sounds like a fucking door slamming when it gets broken on the floor. You've got weird doors wherever you're from, mate. My God. Because a door sounds like a slam, and whenever something maybe there is something that breaks and it sounds like a door, but I don't know any because I'm not...
Room. All over the bed were black and white photos. As Mom got closer, she realized that the photos were all of her. Some were taken at our family home, and others were taken at other houses Mom would clean. Some through windows or over fences. She used the house phone to call the police and immediately drove to the end of the driveway. The lady ended up being investigated, but continued to claim that it was a break-in. After some time, the police stopped with their searching, and we ended up moving to a new town 4 months later.
Bruh.
I'm 22, and this incident
I'm
happened about a
21.
month ago. I had just moved into my first apartment and was in the process of moving in. The door that led to my apartment locks itself automatically when closed. So, I was going to the entrance of the apartment complex to get my mail while talking on the phone with my friend. I returned to the apartment and sat on the bed while opening the mail while using the phone. I dropped the phone on the floor and it landed under the bed, so I had to lie on the floor and stretch for it.
Oh,
I
God.
saw something that caught my eye. There was someone under my bed. My eyes widened and I choked the urge to scream. The person under my bed was lying still with his back towards me and his head to his chest, so I couldn't see his face, and he didn't see me. Trying to be rational while so many thoughts rushed through my head, I picked up the phone, said, "Sorry, I dropped my phone. I'm just gonna take a shower and call you back." The bathroom is right by my bed,
Clever.
so I hastily walked in, quietly locked the door, turned the shower on, jumped out my window, and called the police. They told me to wait nearby, but to go across the street and see if anybody comes out the door of the apartment complex. This was during the summer and it was still light out. I placed myself across the street, hiding behind a car while watching my open bathroom window and the entry door. I called my friend and he came over just before the police. I gave them my keys and they went inside. Only moments later, 2 cops came out holding a thin and tired-looking man. His eyes looked crazy, but he didn't try to get away. The policeman that stood beside me and comforted me while the police searched through my house told me that the man stood outside my bathroom door with one of my kitchen knives, waiting for me to come out. This man had somehow crept in my entry door while I was getting my mail and hid under the bed. The man that was trying to hurt me turned out to be a homeless person and was placed in a mental hospital.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't know if any
I
of
was
you...
21.
The meme! He said it! He said it! Anyway. Yeah, we know... Oh, no, they're not... Okay, there are the good people who are homeless that are, like, generally innocent and all that. And then there are the homeless people that are, you know, kind of scam artists. They're being homeless because they can't get a job or they don't want to. And there are the homeless people that literally try to kill people. And one homeless person, I was watching Nuke's Top 5, and Nuke said it better. Sometimes people are scarier than paranormals. Because this homeless person had booby-trapped the fucking house. Like, literally, they went up... These people who were working at the house, they wanted to go upstairs and, you know, renovate the upstairs. Little did they know, well, thankfully, one of them pointed it out before they triggered it, that there was a booby trap waiting for them. They saw a wire, they, you know, stepped away. I don't know if I recorded this, but they poked the wire with a stick, and below and behold, a steak knife went, whee, tried to if somebody had stood there, it would have either got their head or their neck. People are scary. Fucking... God.
Me and my girlfriend were upstate in my family's vacation mobile home. It was during a snowstorm, and we were sitting on the couch next to the heater, snuggling and watching late-night TV. We were surrounded by absolutely nothing but forest in all directions, and all that was keeping us from the outside was a wooden door that had a broken lock.
Oh,
The
shit.
last time my grandparents came up, my grandpa put a few cinder blocks by the door to use as a kind of barrier in the meantime, since the door opened inwards. Anyway, while we were watching TV, my girlfriend started shaking me, telling me she heard something outside. I assured her it was most likely a deer or a bear or something.
Okay, so let's think about this. What could be considered, you know, somewhat of an alarming sound because it's a large animal? So deer, moose, bear, elk, although that's a type of deer, you know what I mean. Wild horse, that's very, I think they're common in America. Not sure. I'm not that knowledgeable on wildlife, but I know enough. Yeah, definitely bears. So, yeah, why is she... And if she's a country girl, she shouldn't be so scared by this. Or it could be the grandparents, for fuck's sake. We don't know. So I don't know why she's waking up her boyfriend just because she heard a noise.
But then 5 minutes later, my girlfriend looked at me again. I heard it too. I muted the TV so we could hear it better. It sounded like someone was messing around in the little lawnmower shed outside. My car was parked outside and all the lights were on inside. If there was anybody out there, they knew we were inside.
Shit.
My girlfriend was urging me to go outside and check it out.
I'm sorry. Gender equality. Fuck you. No. Just because I'm a man does not mean I'm a brave ass. Doesn't make me fucking Rambo. You. There. I'm gonna be a terrible. I will never be. Why am I yawning? I'm tired for some reason. It's like this puts me to sleep. Why would this put me to sleep? This is terrifying. But yeah, as I was saying, I'm never going to probably get a girlfriend, partly because of the fact that if I ever do get in a horror-like scenario, this is very rarely to happen to me. But if my girlfriend says go check it out, I'm going to say fuck off, no. But anyway, as I was saying with the skit, what are you looking? Just because I'm a guy doesn't make me fucking Rambo or John Cena or some shit. You can go out there, John Wick. Should I call you bloody Minnie Mouse?
But I told her she must be crazy to think that I was going out there.
Too right.
The sound stopped and there was nothing but the sound of the storm outside now. After a few minutes...
See, originally the noise stopped because the guy put his ear to the door and heard this guy's girlfriend say, go the fuck outside and look out what that was. And he went like, you know what, this guy's had enough. He doesn't have to worry about me. It's a fucking girlfriend he has to take care of. Fuck this.
I felt it safe to shut the inside lights and open the blinds to take a quick look outside.
No, you're gonna see some terrorist. He's gonna say, "Oh, Akbar." I don't know. I turned into a Disney character just then. I don't know.
But it was too dark to see anything.
Why did you do that then? Why am I yawning? Right.
I turned on the porch light and I was able to see a good portion of the front yard outside. There were footprints in the snow.
Ah.
Not animal footprints. They were clearly shoe prints, and they were headed in the direction of the backyard. I went to open the curtain.
Communist, I hate communists. I don't know why my throat's deciding to give up on me and also make me yawn.
Curtains to the backyard window, and when I did, I felt the urge to scream. But my girlfriend did instead. Even though there were no lights in the backyard, we could see a man dressed in all black and wearing a vendetta mask facing the window. I mean...
Vendetta, do you mean like the V for vendetta, like mask? So like it's white, like completely white, and the only way you can tell if there was a face is because of the 3 holes. Like that sort of vendetta, or are we talking like some sort of like... I don't know what a vendetta is, so don't...
Immediately shut the blinds and told my girlfriend to go hide in the bedroom, while I grabbed my grandpa's hunting rifle out of the closet.
I'm pretty sure that's what your girlfriend meant when she wanted you to go look, because you had a gun. Okay, that is the only reason why I will not go. If I have a gun... Sorry, I don't know why I'm yawning, but yeah. If I have a gun, of course I'm going straight out there. I'm not going to be afraid to go like, oi, face, come out or I'll blow your brains out of your nose.
I pushed the cinder blocks and a bunch of other heavy objects in front of the door as a barricade, shut all the blinds and lights, and went to hide with my girlfriend in the corner of the bedroom. There was a bang at the front door. He was trying to bust open the door. I don't even think he tried the knob, but it didn't matter either way. After a few futile bangs to the door, it seems the man finally gave up. I stayed up that whole night with the gun by my side while my girlfriend slept.
No.
We packed and left first thing in the morning, but the scary thing, there was a fresh set of footprints leading from the front yard window out into the woods. I haven't been up there since, but my grandparents have, and they said that there was no sign of a break-in or anything missing. I don't plan on ever going back up there.
Man, imagine if you were a cop on
Back
duty.
when my grandma was still alive, I would always walk down the block to her house every day to help with various chores.
No.
There was this one day that I walked over to her house the same time I always did, and decided to let myself in. I was surprised she left the door unlocked. She was a very paranoid old lady and normally kept everything locked. I saw her bedroom door was opened upstairs.
Ooh, why am I yawning? But yeah, okay, so if your grandma is... How do people miss this? You don't just suddenly have your family do one thing, like, all this time, and suddenly it just goes... That. You don't just go, that's weird, proceeds to continue into... How do you not call the cops? Like, sure, I can guess it go like maybe... I don't know.
And I heard her opening and closing drawers and cabinets. I walked upstairs calling Grandma, and as I was about 5 feet from the door, she slammed her bedroom door shut. I knocked, asking if everything was all right, and at that moment my cell phone began to ring. It was my grandma's phone number. I was so confused, but I picked up the phone anyway. My grandma was on the other end, telling me not to come over that day, as she was walking over to her seniors club. I felt my heart skip a beat as she told me this.
Oh.
I hung up the phone before she could say anything else, remaining silent. I knew exactly what was going on.
Right, so this is what you do, okay? So, you go. Okay, so... Right, okay. So, I have the keys to my house. I don't know why I said that out loud. I'm going to get robbed now. But basically, if this kid has the keys to his grandma's house, maybe no, she would have them on her. Maybe he has... If he had a spare on her, he could lock all the doors from the inside and then basically lock all the windows. And say, okay, Grandma, sorry to bother you. I'm off now. Then go, call the police, and then boom shakalaka. 2 criminals caught in one day.
I played dumb and said, Grandma, I'll be downstairs, and made my way to my grandma's kitchen to grab a knife and dial 911.
Nice.
It remained silent in the bedroom after what happened. The police arrived and burst into the bedroom, and the loud and sudden bang of a gunshot caught me off guard.
Whoa.
When the paramedics arrived and wheeled out the intruder, I recognized the man's face. It was my grandma's next-door neighbor.
Bruh.
Apparently, he saw that my grandmother had left the house and broke in to look for jewelry. And when the police broke into the bedroom, they found the man hiding next to the door with a large knife in hand. If I had walked into that bedroom, I would have been as good as dead.
Yep. Bruh, I swear, burglars are the worst. They go for the worst pick. They go for the easy. You scumbag. You thief. You cunt. There, I said it. What you gotta do, sue me? Oh, dear. I hope you don't find where I fucking live, communists. Right, okay. Still. There's a controller looking right at it.
The most haunting memory of my life. Me and my wife were getting home from dinner out, and as soon as we stepped out of the car, we noticed that our front door to our house was open. I told my wife to wait outside while I ran inside and ran straight up to our bedroom, where I hid the shotgun. I loaded the gun and scanned every single...
Clever man. Intruder, identify yourself. Sorry. Yeah. Right. That's a clever move. Immediately goes for the shotgun. Right, I actually need to go back a few seconds. I want to hear that again.
The most haunting memory of my life. Me and my wife were getting home from dinner out, and as soon as we stepped out of the car, we noticed that our front door to our house was open. I told my wife to wait outside while I ran inside and ran straight up to our bedroom, where I hid the shotgun. I loaded the gun and scanned every single room upstairs. There was no sign of anybody. I made my way down to scanning the main floor, followed by the basement. There was no sign of anybody, and there was nothing missing or moved. I called the cops, and when they arrived, I told them what happened, and they began to investigate some rooms upstairs, followed by the basement. Nothing was turned up. They made a case of asking us if we were positive that we shut the door when we left. I myself was starting to have doubts, not completely sure if I had, but my wife remained confident that we had shut the door. The police seemed sure that if somebody had broken in, they didn't stick around long, as there didn't seem to be any signs of burglary. My wife was worried sick, crying that she wasn't comfortable being in the house.
Wow.
I comforted her the best I could, assuring her that whoever broke in the house left in a hurry. I finally fell asleep after hours of rolling around in the bed, but my sleep was immediately cut short by the disturbing scream of my wife.
There is no way okay, so I presume that this guy and his wife got home fairly late, so the fact that they got immediately to bed makes sense, because there is no way a burglar would have sat in that house for more than 5 hours just to escape. There is no way. Excuse me.
I looked at her, and she was staring intently in the direction of the closet.
Of course she is.
It hit me like a bullet just then. I had forgotten to check the second closet. I looked over and saw...
So, you had forgotten to check the closet, and so had the police. Wow. That's a fucking joke. Wow. Serve and protect, more like be lazy and protect. Protect the donuts, am I right?
For the briefest second, a man poking his head out of the closet before closing the closet door. Within 5 seconds, I had the shotgun loaded in hand and cocked it back to let the intruder know that I was armed. I screamed for him to come out, and just like that, the closet door opened, but instead of showing submission, he made a mad dash for the front door of the house.
Lock and load.
I could have shot him, but I didn't have it in me. He was never caught.
You massive puff. Ah, yes. Yells, I have a shotgun and I'm gonna use it. Man literally opens the door, runs for... Oh my god. Man. I get if he ran towards you, you would have probably shot him. Maybe not with that amount of attitude. I just right. God. I swear. People that say, I have a shotgun, come on out, or I'll shoot you. They're going please come out, I don't want to use this weapon, but I will use it to scare the crap out of you. Anyone who just loads the shotgun and goes, no, and then says, get out. That's when you have a firm, this person going to kill me.
Got away with it scot-free. I think having that gun saved us from a terrible fate.
Mm-hmm. I think it also saved you from being a little bitch. Actually, you were a little bitch.
About a year ago, while still living under my parents' roof, I started experiencing some weird occurrences in my house. specifically my bedroom. While I was laying awake in my bed one late night, I heard a creaking sound coming from across the bedroom. My closet door had somehow been opened. When I got up to check it, I subconsciously checked for anybody inside my closet, even though I was 26 years old. Of course there was nobody inside, so
Sure.
I shut the door and went back to bed. Later that same night, I would hear rumbly, rattling noises coming from up above the ceiling.
Yeah, no.
It sounded like something in the air ducts. It was a very strange sound. I really had no idea what to think about it, but as soon as it stopped, I kind of forgot about it quickly and fell asleep. In the morning, I did tell my dad about sounds in the attic the previous night, but annoyingly, he didn't seem too interested, or he just didn't take me very seriously. That night, I again lay in my bed awake, reflecting on life, when yet again, the slow creak of the closet door creeping open broke the silence. This time, I felt genuinely afraid. I knew the door was completely shut. It would take somebody twisting the door.
Okay, guys, I'm just gonna quickly say, like, okay, so with a shotgun, it's more about firepower than accuracy. So as long as the target is close, you can more or less, you know, directly just one shot them, because it's a slug round. So basically, spread and just go. Don't care. What would be more terrifying to hear? A shotgun load, like a pump action shotgun, like, or a bolt action sniper gun, like. I don't know if that's a proper bolt action sound effect, but you know what I mean. What's scarier, bolt action or a shotgun load? Because I'll sure as hell tell you one thing: just pull out a bolt action at close range and just go, and get a precise shot in the chest there, pretty much. And don't forget 50 cals. 50 cal go.
Doorknob for it to be able to push open. This time I took an extra careful look inside the closet for anybody, even though it wasn't a big closet and there really wasn't anywhere somebody could hide. I rationalized it as being a broken doorknob or something, and that same night, I again heard the rattling sounds coming from above the ceiling. It was exactly what happened the previous night. The next morning I convinced my dad to take a look at my closet door, but he quickly determined that the door was fine. When it was closed, he pulled on it, and it showed no signs of coming off the latch. Of course, he suggested that I was simply leaving the door unlatched, but I knew I wasn't. That night, I sat up, waiting for it to happen again, and right on cue, the closet door creaked open. I waited for the sounds above the ceiling, but there was just a long silence. I turned on my lamp and looked up to the air vents in my room, and I screamed at the top of my lungs. I could distinctly see two wide-open eyes peering through the vents at me.
Bruh.
My parents barged into my room asking if I'd gone insane. I explained everything, and they looked at each other like I had completely lost it. Not surprisingly, they dismissed it as a dream or the fact that I was too tired and was seeing things. They even began to lecture me about staying up too late.
Oh, wow.
But to this day, I know I hadn't imagined it. It was too real. And the closet opening routinely? I know for a fact that wasn't in my imagination. I've never been a believer in the paranormal, but I still have absolutely no other explanation for those 3 nights.
Okay, first off, mate, your parents are absolute cunts. Second of all, that wasn't paranormal. That was a person living in your vent. Okay, I'm sorry. That was a terrible joke, and I apologise for making it in the first place. But, man, you screamed in terror. Your parents immediately went like, what is up? What is wrong with you? And started lecturing you after you either had a nightmare. Because, man, some parents out there are dicks. Yes, I'm just going to casually scream in the night in terror and then get lectured because my body was a dick. Fucking parents, mate.
I live in the Poconos with my wife and kids. There's a small lake about it.
The Hoosie, what's it? But that's all I heard. Positive. My tongue's just gone.
Quarter-mile away from our backyard. I commonly take my kids down there to go swimming.
Mistake.
Up until last week, that is. Now, I'm never letting them go down there again. I haven't told anyone about this in fear of sounding crazy. It was last Saturday. We went over to the lake and set up our chairs on the sand. It's like a little private beach in our own backyard. It's been amazing. Me and my wife sat in our beach chairs enjoying the sun while our kids were splashing around in the water. I always tell them not to go too deep. They're still young, 6 and 8. We sat there for a good 2 hours that day. Neither of us...
Okay, the 6-year-old, I can understand why you don't want him to go deep. But 8 years old, like, unless there is a literal current that would likely sweep him away, what... Did you not teach your kids how to swim, mate? My God. I swear. Like, yeah, I guess being a parent makes you worry about your kids, but... Kids aren't just going to shatter and break. Unless you have literally told your kids how to not swim in a place where there is water, I'm going to be concerned.
We're in the mood to get wet. Eventually, my wife got tired and decided to walk back home. I agreed to stay with the kids a little while longer, as they were somehow still having so much fun playing in the sand and water. The sun was setting at this point, and I was getting tired. They were going a little too deep, so I called at them to come back closer to the shore. They couldn't hear me apparently, so I stood up and got closer. Before I could call them again, I noticed something in the water. It looked like a black, roundish object, and it was moving closer to my kids. I ran into the water closer to my kids, telling them to come out. When they got close enough, I dragged them out myself.
Hang on. Something on my shelf is bloody collapsing. Sorry, guys. What the fuck? Oh, for God's sake, is that what's causing my... No. Caught it. Sorry, guys. Hang on. Bear with me. Plastic crap is deciding to... What the fuck? There. Stay. Fucking communist. There is so much stuff trying to collapse. This is beyond reasonable. Okay. Dick move from random crap. Okay, there goes that. Okay, there you go. Sorry, everyone. Right, there's the control.
Turned back to the water. The object was gone. My kids were confused as hell. I didn't know what to tell them, so I just told them it was time to go home. We packed up and walked back to the house, but I wasn't happy when I got home. I was uncomfortable with what I just saw. That thing looked like no sea creature known to man. Dinner was waiting for us when we got home. I ate really slow, thinking about the object in the water and whether or not to tell my wife. My wife asked me what's wrong. She noticed that I was eating slow. I decided not to tell her right then. After dinner, I took a flashlight with me and walked back down to the lake. By then, it was already dark out. I got to the lake, but to be honest, I didn't even know what I was expecting to find.
Okay, I'm sorry, but you went back out after dark. Are you an Asian communist? Sorry if there were actually any Asian communists out there that got offended by that joke, but... Sorry, itchy nose. as I was saying, you fucking idiot. Are you trying to get yourself killed? My God. Come on. Moustache hairs. Piss off. There are hairs directly into my nose area and it is causing irritation.
I shine the flashlight all around the surface of the water, searching for the black object. And just then, I heard a large splash come from somewhere in the lake. The kind of splash of something emerging out of the water. I thought it might be some kind of animal in the lake. I shine the light all over the place, searching for the source of the sound. And then I found it. And I realized I was dead wrong. There was a silhouette of a humanoid figure with long black hair covering its whole face. It just stood there, facing me, but not staring at me. Not that I could tell. I dropped the flashlight in horror and sprinted all the way back up to my house, slamming the door shut behind me. I haven't told anybody about this. What kills me is that lake is only a quarter mile away from my house. And for all I know, that thing could be watching me through my window right now as I write this.
Bro's literally writing a horror story. Jesus. That is terrifying. Thankfully, the nearest lake to me is not very deep and most likely contains fish, so I'm alright.
Get ready for something incredible in your next smartphone.
Suck my
The Dimensity
giant
9000.
cock. Sorry. Tell you what, guys, I'm going to end this video here because I want to watch this. Because this looks awfully confusing and terrifying. So I'll see you guys in the next one. And look for the upload with a thumbnail like this. You'll know it when you see it.